expectation as we go in, but what are you expecting out of this pick ban?
We're here to have fun. That's what I'm expecting. But no, from what this pick ban I'm expecting to see, I want to see from LGD, I want to see them lock in a nice, solid, like we just talked about into the head-to-head, a nice, solid jungle mid-lane combination. Maybe give Garvey something a little bit safer on that bot side, so you're kind of shoring up your disadvantages, having your top laner in ADC role. And for EDG, realistically, I want to see Scout get something that can influence the sides of the map. I want to see him go for something that can roam and go for something that can get the, as we say, the team working as a whole.
I would love to see as well, like, and this is a stretch. Whether or not we'll see this is a different conversation. I would love to see Uniboy bring out the set mid that we saw from him at the World Championship. I think he was one of the better set mids that we saw in the tournament. Really, really great performance from him. It's not particularly meta right now. Is it the correct thing to do in terms of the meta? Probably not, but I would love to see it anyway. It's not going to happen.
LPL. It doesn't matter if it's correct or not. It's just you just play it, and if you play it well, you got it.
If you're winning, it's correct. Them's the rules here in the LPL. We've got an Olaf first pick. Let's quickly catch up with the draft. Olaf first pick here. We've got a Kai'Sa to answer, which these have been two of the massive priorities recently. And it looks like just mid lane priority is going to be the name of the game here for LGD in these early picks.
I like this if they do lock in. Yep, they do lock in the Zoe. I quite like this a lot. It gives you a lot of safety. It gives you a lot of poke damage to come down as well. You can kind of pretty much keep the Olaf at arm's length at all times, which is very, very nice. Or make him burn his Ragnarok very early if you land a Trouble Bubble. For the Olaf, for JJ, he's a very objective-focused jungler. So there's two kind of ways we've seen the jungles played out in the LPL so far, is that you either go for heavy ganks onto either a side lane, or you look for those early objectives. And for the moment, I've seen a trend of that the success rate of the junglers tends to lean more towards those kills and gold rather than the objectives. So with the Xayah and the Leona locked in, it looks like, again, EDG, they're looking for that big objective-focused team fight that kind of, scales better into the late game.
We'll have to see what LGD are going to pick up to finish out their composition in the first half here. I would have loved to see the Akali locked in on the side of EDG. Just because when you think about Scout, you think of him as an assassin player, really. Not necessarily these control mages. Usually you lean towards those assassins. With Akali making it through the bans, I would have loved to see that. Also, the matchup that you're going into. Would have been nice to see Scout on something where he can really, flex his wings a little bit. On the other side, though, it is going to be the Graves locked in for Quay. So still a relatively strong mid-jungle 2v2. You've got the combination of AD and AP damage there. But Graves not really the kind of jungler that you pick if you're wanting to fight early.
Yep, Graves, very heavy farming jungler, can clear the jungle very, very quickly. And the reason why, if you're wondering why we're seeing such heavy farming junglers right now, is that we have this camp spawn so damn quickly, and the experience you get after level 9 is just a lot greater for the jungler that's actually taking the camp, regardless of the time of the game. So you want to try and get to level 9, and that's why we're seeing the differences of a level 9 jungler versus like a level 11 jungler, because one hit level 9 a lot quicker. So pretty obvious that you do see the Graves, but I'm very happy to see LGD focusing these bans onto the mid lane. They're getting rid of the Orianna and the Syndra, things that can kind of safely go into the Zoe while also having influence on the map. So we're going to see Scout maybe a little bit tested in his champ pool.
Yeah, I think what LGD are basically trying to do here is find themselves pure mid priority. Orianna and Syndra both do fine in the 1v1 against Zoe, but they also are mid laners that will fight for priority and be able to roam outside of that mid lane. So look towards Uniboy roaming from the mid lane. Look at these dragon fights and things like that, and whether or not he's going to be able to get over there. LGD now looking towards their support, and I'm curious what EDG are going to do next. I don't know if you have any predictions here, Penguin, on how EDG can round out this composition.
It'll be tough with a Thresh. You're giving a lot of safety towards that bot lane, and we already talked about how safe the Zoe is. Right now, you're looking at those mid lane bans, so TF, Orianna, Syndra all taken off the board. Set as well, not really an option here. So you could go with the Victor, just keep you a bog standard safe pick that can work in towards the team fights. And for top lane, I was going to say the Gnar until they banned it, but right now, maybe they could go with something like the Scion. Hell, they could even go with something maybe a little bit less, traditional Camille. Ornn, traditional, you could go Camille. There's a couple of options here. I would like to, actually, the Aatrox, I completely forgot about him.
I was about to say, it's Flandre. So Aatrox is always an option. Flandre loves that Aatrox. And you can, especially with the Gore Drinker build, you kind of still are just a frontliner. Even though you're not building tanky necessarily, the amount of lifesteal that you get, the amount of sustain you have, you are essentially a tank. So it kind of just facilitates that frontline role now.
Yeah, once you get those 2 item spikes, the Gorge Inker and the Steris Gauge, it is so difficult to just burst down an Aatrox, just purely from his sustain with the items, and just the pure shielding he gets as well. It's actually a monster. Plus, overall, like, when you're looking at this team, he's got a front line to go in with him, so it makes a lot of sense that you go in with the Aatrox and the Leona, Olaf on the backside, and it's a very bog-standard front-to-back team fight coming out from EDG. With LGD, they are poke central right now. They've got themselves the Zoe, the Jace. They are looking to kite you out, get your health bars down, and just basically make it a battle of attrition. They don't want to 5v5 realistically at all, because they will just get melted. They need to start the fight before it's even begun.
Yeah, for the side of LGD, they want to try and keep EDG at arm's length, and one of the difficulties that you could see for EDG here is Leona is the only reliable hard engage that they've got going on the squad. So if Solar Flare is splashed away from, it can be quite hard for EDG to actually close the gap without Flandre finding himself a significant flank over on that side. Whereas on the side of LGD, if they can be the first ones on the scene for an objective and just play at range, stop EDG being able to contest, it becomes very difficult for EDG to operate this composition. We'll have to see, though, if they're going to be able to get to that point, because the thing about poke comps is if you fall too far behind, it can be really hard to get yourself back into the game.
Yeah, the whole problem going up against poke comps is that they just keep absolutely 100-0ing you without even starting a fight. That's why they're so infuriating to deal with. Plus, when you add in someone like a Zoe, who is kind of the ultimate poke mid laner, she's got ways of catching people out. It's a poke pick comp that if you get hit by a trouble bubble, if you get hit by a hook, you can be 100-0 very, very quickly. But for EDG, if they're able to keep within, a couple of hundred gold, keep themselves in the stronger 5v5 and force LGD to fight around objectives like dragons or anything like that, they could find themselves at a very, very solid advantage.
Oh, EDG will be looking for the front to back, which, I think a lot of people could have expected coming into today. Support coming out strong here for our two teams. And let's just remember as well that these are two historic organizations going head to head here. These are both LPL veteran organizations. And there's more on the line here than just the standings as of right now. But certainly for EDG, the standings as they are phenomenal. When you consider the recent performance in the last couple of years from EDG, the last time EDG had a really, really great performance was like 2017. That's a long time ago when you consider that EDG used to be one of the squads that people thought about as the world's representative for LPL. So with the way that this squad has been going so far, with a flawless season so far, maybe, just maybe, this is finally the return to glory for EDG.
And it's an exciting time for EDG fans. You look at this lineup and you can't help but feel like we said in the Bevies with the Boys episode of for the LPL with all 6 of us, is that Lyric and Clement are excited for this side. They are excited for this team. JJ, Flandre, Scout, Viper, Mako. These are big, big names. I would argue maybe top 5 in their role at minimum. And that's why you can get excited for them. And right now, like you said, they're looking solid. They're looking good. What I want to see from them here, from an LGD that, like we said, is a very, very, very new squad in terms of its coming together, I want to see clean League of Legends. I want to see them, as we've seen them so far, execute on their composition, make sure they're not giving LGD the chance to move forward and make their composition work, and just come out with a clean win if I want to get really excited for them. This can't be scrappy.
Well, we'll see about that, because they are rookies, so whether or not it can be the cleanest win ever, you may be disappointed on that one, Penguin. But one thing I will say is that from what we've seen from these guys against V5, it felt like if they can win these lanes, they can win the game off the back of that. The decision-making was good. They were proactive. When they had priority and were able to move around the map, they were able to make a lot happen. So, with the way that they've drafted, Uniboy will have priority in that mid lane. You got Quay as well, who on this Graves is going to be able to roam around the map very, very quickly. You've got Cult will have infinite priority towards the top side. And down in that bottom lane as well, with Kaiser against Xayah, when you have kill threat, when Chance can find a good position, you can get priority, although you'd expect Xayah to be the one leading the charge when it comes to that wave clear and therefore bot lane priority. So there's a lot to work with here for LGD, and if they can make some plays happen early and get themselves a gold lead, this is a team that you cannot just count out.
Yeah, like you said, they pretty much picked winning lanes across the board. The Jace will always have the push in onto the Aatrox. Zoe can clear the waves very quickly and efficiently. As you can see here, does mean that Quay has got pure safety to walk into mid lane, pick up a scuttle, go over to the other side, pick up another scuttle. And overall, they have got the priority. But the big thing I want to see from LGD is how do they use that priority? It's always the biggest problem we kind of see with certain teams in the LPL. It's like, yes, you got an advantage, but what are you doing with it? And that's going to be the biggest test, I feel, for LGD in this series. And, oh, we're going to have a fight.
2v2 in the bot side. Garvey's in trouble. Flashes away, but one more auto should do the trick. Garvey ticking down, but he survives on barely any HP. But the Q goes through, and the feathers pierce his heart.
And that is the issue when you're having your top laner in your ADC position. You step too close to the fire and Mako will punish you. He immediately goes aggressive. You've got the Ignite available to you as well. And that's why Leona is such a problem in, for duos right now, is that if your Thresh isn't playing super far back and that Leona catches on top of you, you have no escape.
And let's just remember the bot lane that they're up against. In fact, let's take another look at the replay first, because Garvey already fairly low on HP here. I think he just walked in front of the feathers. And then at that point, once you're rooted, you already know how that fight's going to go.
Yeah, it was good from Garvey to survive as long as he did and force everything out of EDG. So as you can see across the board, apart from the Ignite on chance, everything was used. So there's no flashes or, combat summoner spells for the EDG bot lane. So, but I imagine with JJ being the objective focus and kind of, the guy who he is on this Olaf, he should be feeling pretty confident to maybe make something work now in this bot side, knowing that Garvey has not really any kind of escape for a very long time.
Certainly could look towards that bottom side from the side of JJ, but whether or not he goes down there is going to be a different question. Scout going to finally get some priority in that mid lane. I think they're just trying to free him up so he can finally get a reset off and grab himself some items there. In the meantime, though, I do want to talk about this roster for the side of LGD and specifically Uniboy, because I feel like this is a real opportunity for Uniboy. And granted, not that many people are excited about this LGD roster coming into this year, right? This is not a team that people are putting at the top of their power rankings, and partly that's because of the fresh talent that's on this squad. But you can get excited about that fresh talent. People like Uniboy stepped onto the world stage as a sub for PSG, managed to show up massively. Like, I think that this is a fantastic opportunity that he has earned for himself off the back of his Worlds performance, and I'm excited to see what he can individually do on the LPL stage, because he's come over from the PCS, sorry, and let's be realistic here. When it comes to mid laners going into the LPL, going up against players like Rookie, players like Scout, for example, these are opportunities to show what you're made of.
Yeah, again, this is what we want to see from teams like LGD, or you don't want to kind of use a huge amount of money getting a player who might give you the exact same result. Putting a little bit of investment into someone like Uniboy, who, like you said, had a fantastic performance at Worlds, despite being an AHQ player, was subbed in because of the way Worlds was. It was a very interesting time with COVID and everything. So he ended up coming in, showing that he is a fantastic mid lane talent and able to prove himself. And he is now on a team that has gone to Worlds, has gone to the World Championship group stage. Yes, it's a completely different roster to what it was, but as an organization, one of the oldest in the entire league, and has a very dedicated fan base. So if he can mark him, set himself up and mark himself as an actual mid lane threat in a league with thousands of mid lane threats, he'd be doing very well for himself.
I do apologize if you can hear my dog in the background. Millie gets very stressed when things like post happen. Garvey also gets stressed in these situations, as you can see. Completely panics and whiffs in the lane phase, goes down there. It's been a stressful game so far, so I can understand why Millie's barking so much, but
she was trying to warn them. She was trying to warn Garvey that it was going to happen. But Garvey, no, don't walk forward. She has Hex Flash.
There's a snake in the lane. There's a Viper. He's poisonous. Oh my God, has Viper been poisonous? Can we just take a moment let's just start the Viper Appreciation Club? Because this guy was on Griffin in the LCK. He looked amazing. That Griffin squad looked awesome for a short amount of time. Then he moves over to Hanwha Life, has a really, really rough split, and still individually looked okay, but like the team was not operating. It was not working out. Moves over to the LPL, and what a debut this guy has had. Every single game, it feels like Viper is popping off. Him and the veteran support of Mako feels like a match made in heaven. Heavy trading up on the top side here. Of course, going to get away with it. But yeah, this bot lane 2v2 for EDG has gone from one of their weakest parts on the map to one of their absolute strengths.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster if you look at Viper's history. You know, #1 in LCK Spring with Griffin, of course, then lost 0-3 to SKT in the finals, came second in that. You know, first again in 2019 summer, unfortunately again losing 3-1 to SKT, and then went to Hanwha Life. Didn't really have a huge amount of success, like you said, but has proven time and time again that he is a very, very strong, you know, ADC that needs to be respected overall in the LCK, and now finding a roster in EDG. And I feel like it's a great fit for EDG because they're very methodical, they're very by the book, like we said, but with Viper, he adds that little bit of flair that you know can just pop off at any moment.
And even looking elsewhere on the roster for EDG, there's plenty more to get excited about, because obviously, you know, Mako, Scout, JJ, these are guys that were here last year. This is part of the system. But then Flandre, the top laner that they've plugged into this squad, Mako is going to be fine. I wasn't sure if they were going to try and make the play there as JJ starts off this Herald. But Flandre up on the top side, he was on LNG for the longest time. LNG and Snake, ever since the organization first joined the LPL, he was there. Scout flashes away from the attempted play in the mid lane there. That was Quay's flash as well. He's going to get away with it. And Flandre now moving on to a different squad, it feels like he has so much more freedom to play here. He has so much more to work with. And LNG at the same time also seemed to have leveled up. So maybe this was a change that finally needed to happen in his career. And he gets to be a bigger part of something again.
And it's kind of just as a weird like anecdote, I suppose. It feels like EDG are assembling like, you know, the Infinity Gauntlet. They've got all these different pieces that are scattered around the, you know, the LPL and LCK universe, and they finally got them all together and perfectly balanced, like all things should be. And like we talked about, and why we're getting a little bit excited for this team is that yes, they're going to have growing pains. Yes, they're going to have slight issues of, you know, kind of, you know, coordination sometimes, but their fundamentals have been incredibly solid. Their understandings of their team comps and when they're strong has been incredibly good. So this is an exciting roster that could potentially come out and really, you know, cement themselves back at the upper echelons of the LPL, because this is a team, EDG is an organization, used to be EDG, RNG. That was the finals. That was it, always and forever. And it's nice to see them come back to that level of success, potentially in this year. Yeah,
and key thing is potentially, right? I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. They haven't made it just yet, but when you look at the standings, it's feeling pretty good. They're 2-0. They are 4-2, though. Both of the series that they've won, they went to 3 games. So yet to put themselves in that position of stomping opponents. And maybe that could be their downfall is the consistency in these series. And maybe it's an issue of which side of the map they're playing on as well. As we look at this game, though, let's kind of recap on where we're at, because we've been kind of talking about rosters a little bit and talking about the standings. We are dead even when it comes to gold. LGD managed to get the first Drake for themselves, but look where the gold is for either of these teams, because obviously no kills on the side of LGD, so it's just coming from farm and from tower plays. Whereas on the side of EDG, Viper's already got 2 kills for himself. He's got himself a 10 CS lead as well. On top of that, he is going to be powering up fast, and when you consider that Xayah is that 3-item AD carry, it's real good to have those kills early.
Yeah, and this is the thing that we talked about, why it's a little bit of a risk, but so rewarding as well. It's kind of high risk, high reward if you do pick something like the Xayah, is that if the Xayah gets put behind, Xayah on like an item and a half versus even a 1-item kind of, you know, meta quote-unquote AD carry like a Kai'Sa is just horrible, horrible, horrible to play against. You can do literally nothing. You lose CS, you lose pressure. Whereas on the other side, if you're able to get ahead and you get ahead of the curve in terms of power, and you're already at a full item as they're coming up to the 15-minute mark, you're able to go toe-to-toe with something like the Kai'Sa. You're able to keep up the pressure, and you have to be respected, because Gale Force, we've seen it before with so many different champions, that it just creates opportunities where there is none. So I like the fact that EDG got a lot of, you know, and it was straight up 2v2 advantages. There wasn't any gank pressure from JJ. It was just straight up them doing what they had to do and knowing the matchup and knowing they could get the kills.
Yep, Viper now, EDG know that he's the carry here. He's the one that has to make things happen. So they drop the Herald for him in the bottom side. Very nicely done, and no massive answer from LGD. Quay's moving up, though, and Flandre's in a 2v1 right here. Worldender to try and get himself to safety, but I don't think he's got the lifesteal for this one. Flashes over the wall. Collateral damage misses. I'm surprised at the lack of commitment to the play here from LGD. And now Scout's moving over. Quay did manage to get the Gromp in the end.
Yeah, I like the idea from LGD. They know that the bot lane is pretty much dead to rights because of the Rift Herald play. They saw plenty of people down there as well, so they had the numbers advantage. Just the execution of it definitely lacking a little bit overall from LGD. We also didn't see Uniboy roam over either, so it was just straight up 2v1 rather than a full stack of topside kind of stacking on the top end. But overall, EDG get out. They still have yet to lose a kill, and they also stopped the dragon stacking. So for EDG, this is a pretty decent setup for them overall. They're just kind of, yes, the gold is very, very even, but they're still the ones that have the better 5v5. And for LGD, I feel like they're going to struggle later on this game, you know, the later this game becomes.
Yeah, and, you know, Penguin, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you were saying how EDG are very much one of the more reserved teams in the LPL. And after that first series today, I think a lot of the viewers were very hyped up, very amped up, very ready for more action. But I feel like Viper left the LCK and then he joined the most LCK team we have in the LPL, because EDG very much like to play it slow, and especially when they're drafting this much scaling on the squad with a Xayah, with a Victor, you expect them to play it slow in the early game. That's exactly what we're seeing from the two squads, and the onus is very much on the side of LGD to make early game plays happen. But realistically, when you look at the two rosters, neither team is in any rush. They both scale reasonably well. Like, there's no part in the game where it's like, oh, okay, well, this composition is just going to completely fall out of the game. So they're both quite happy to take it slow here.
Slow and steady wins the race. They do lose a bit of pressure on the top side, but they gain it up. Or sorry, the bot side, they gain it in the top side. So it's a straight up trade. And EDG are definitely, like we talked about, one of the teams that are totally happy taking this trade because you're keeping it within their wheelhouse. I feel like the way to take down EDG is to just throw in chaos. The likes of IG, FBX, those kind of teams are going to be a lot more difficult for EDG purely because they're pure chaos. They just throw things at it. It's like, we're going to fight you over this. It's like, wait, why? Oh, I don't know. Why not? Like, we're just going to throw it here and we're going to fight over this Red Bull. Someone like Rogue Warriors, like we talked about earlier on in the week, these guys are going to be kind of the bigger test for EDG because if you play their game, they're just going to be better at it than you. That's just, unfortunately, that's just how it is.
Yeah, it's difficult to play against a team like this. And also, well, I mean, we talked about earlier how EDG are the teacher's pet. Well, their composition is all about scaling up and not fighting until the late game, and very much doing that. Also, their composition is about setting up this Xayah to be the primary carry, this ADC that can escape from danger. Should a trouble bubble land, should Garvey be able to throw a Void Seeker over, you always have that Blade Call, the Feather Storm, to be able to jump yourself to safety in the midst of a team fight. So trying to set Viper up early so that he can be that primary carry is always going to be a good start. JJ going to find himself the second Herald of this game, but it's a minute until this next Drake comes up. We're one Drake apiece here, Penguin. Are you expecting one team to have priority here over the other?
Yeah, EDG straight up. You can have a look at the lanes. They're getting mid lane kind of set up for them. They're throwing Schwand right up to the top side with that TP available to him as well. They are going to get a full reset. We can see just there, right at the Rift Herald fight, how difficult it is for LGD to walk into this EDG lineup because of just purely the engage and just the control they have with this Victor and the Xayah. You have to watch the feathers. You have to be careful of the gravity gate. You have to, or yeah, the gravity field. You have to be careful of so many little things. If your skill shots don't land, if you don't have the paddle star landing, and you get hit by a laser like that from Garvey, you don't have a chance in this fight. So you can see already EDG just asserting dominance, saying, we know we're stronger in a straight up 5v5 if you don't hit your skill shots.
Uniboy finds a trouble bubble here. The Krugs are going to ruin everything, though. The two tiny Krugs just come and sit on top of Uniboy.
Sixth man. The sixth and seventh man.
Yeah, unlucky there. I've been there. I've been that Zoe. It sucks when you get minion blocks on your Qs after a bubble, but we're going to see the fight for mid lane priority because the Dragon is now up on the board, and you can see JJ on the right side of the map. Garvey, interestingly, going for the Kraken Slayer, not for the Gale Force here. So a much more late game focused version of the Kai'Sa here, where you're not looking for the early burst damage. You're not necessarily looking even to be the assassin. You're looking to be that crit AD carry. Herald dropped in the mid lane, though. Should give priority to EDG. They're looking for a fight as the Solar Flare goes wide. Flash away from Mako. Now they can get onto the Dragon. Flandrake trying to keep everyone away, but LGD are not going down without a fight here. The re-engage, but Chance misses the hook. Going to be rooted up. And Quay barely any HP to work with as he has to back away from the dragon. Uniboy gets a trouble bubble in, and health bar's starting to get low on either side. Colt goes in, Chance goes golden, keep himself alive, and it's pure chaos in the dragon pit. Garvey trying to survive, but one more auto as he flashes over the wall.
It's still alive!
And now Mako on the backside is Colt looking for more, but this Olaf is on a tear. Uniboy under the dragon, but he's 1 versus 3 and cut down by the Chaos Storm. Dragon goes the way of EDG.
Dragon was just putting down so much damage. You can see Quay goes down to about 200 HP before that fight even begins. It was a smart move from LGD, like we said, to try and keep EDG at arm's length, but EDG did not let them just dictate the pace. They did not let them just take anything for free. They jumped straight on top of them, and you can see once Scout and JJ are still alive, they can just tear up the end of the fight. It doesn't matter that you took down the AD carry.
Yeah, good hook by Chance there, but when we take another look at what actually happened, the start of the fight was not fighting, basically. The start of the fight was both teams desperately trying to tiptoe around this one and not get caught. That's the ult, though, from Viper that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, and this fight overall, you can see Quay is almost pretty much out of this fight right now. Flandre puts himself nicely above the wall. Scout is there as well. And even though he's half health, Viper goes a little bit too deep, gets himself caught out, but it doesn't matter. Flandre and JJ are just too damn big, and you could just completely cut this one down. Uniboy tries his very, very best to make this as equal trade as possible, but with having the Chaos Storm still available to you, he was always going to be bursted down. He had his flash available, but at that point, you're always going to die. So, like that he didn't use it, like that he tried his best, but it's so hard when you can't kill off Scout. You have to just, commit everything to Viper, then you're just left with nothing left in the tank from the side of LGD. So, EDG, they kind of just clean up house after that.
Yeah, really, really difficult to win these fights at this point. And let's bear in mind what we talked about earlier. LGD don't actually want a straight up 5v5, and they definitely don't want Uniboy to be caught out without a hope or a prayer here. He's going to try and get away. Has Flash available, but I don't think there's any getaway. Maybe should have just held on to Flash, honestly, because 3v1, not much hope of escaping.
When the pick cop's getting picked, you know you're in trouble. That is an unfortunate time to, as you said, you kept your flash from the last fight. You used it in that particular incident. Probably not the best situation. Look at the player go. Viper's almost on 10k. He is so far ahead. He is nearly 2,000 gold ahead of his counterpart in Garvey. And on a scaling ADC like the Xayah, that's just so difficult to deal with Viper having the heal, the feathers, or sorry, the feathers fly, and of course the flash. It's just going to be becoming more and more difficult to lock down this AD carry. And he has a stopwatch in the back pocket as well. So killing off Viper is no longer an option for you on the side of LGD. You need another win condition.
Yeah, I mean, even when you just look at the runes, it tells a story. Hang on a second here. Scout's trying to get away with a recall. Chance isn't going to let him, though. The Chaos Storm comes on down, and there's a TP coming through as well. Scout flashes, dodges the hook, keeps himself alive, and gets one in the 1v2. And now Quay, chased out of the fight by Flandre. Colt is here, though, and suddenly the numbers advantage to LGD. But Colt's gone too deep, too fast. Will survive for now. Flandre trying to keep this fight going as Viper, I guess he's just going to settle for chickens. That's the advantage we're going to find, I guess.
They try to go for a pick, but look at the map state. Look where everything is in terms of, the minions and the waves. That's going to, yes, you gain a kill, but you lose one. So it's a 1-for-1 trade, and you lose a tower, and the rest of the waves are pushing into you. It's a bit desperate from LGD. You can see they're scrapping to try and find something, but EDG, they've got the answers.
Yeah, beautifully done here by EDG. They lose the fight overall, but ultimately they gain more on the map. They have Viper pushing in the mid lane, and they're more than happy to play the game in that way. Look at JJ's score as well, 202. He's now got the Hysterics. We talked about this earlier. The 2-item spike of the Goldrink Hysterics makes you completely invincible. Well, JJ's already there. Flandre's not far away. This late game teamfight composition that we talked about, they're almost there. We're only 22 minutes in. We're not at the late game, but they almost are.
It is only a 4,000 gold lead, but it feels so much worse when you're against a team like this from EDG and LGD. They need to catch someone out. They need to have a flash of brilliance, a mistake from someone on EDG, which is asking a lot when we talk about these guys being the slow and steady wins the race kind of team. And that is how they come back into this game. But for EDG, they just want to keep playing the way they're playing. They're doing nothing wrong. They're going to keep keeping the waves in their favor. They can fight 5v5 over objectives. They have 3 items onto Viper. They are at the strongest. And they're going to keep getting stronger. They're now no longer at a deficit in terms of, the composition, quote unquote, having the early game. Because the early game just didn't go in favor of LGD.
And I want to hang on. We've got a fight coming up. There's Dragon in 20 seconds. We'll come back to this conversation because I think we're about to see everything explode here, Penguin.
Oh, the flank.
Flandre is trying to find the flank, and we talked about this earlier. You got Mako as the hard engage, and the flanks from Flandre. Cult forced the flash out of the fight here. Good solar flare from Mako to force that summoner. That should just be Dragon for EDG now, as it becomes incredibly difficult for LGD to face check in.
And this is why Gale Force is considered an quote-unquote OP item. It's not inherently OP, but it adds so much extra room for skill expression for the top players in the world. Viper is able to take out half HP because Cult thinks he's at a safe distance. Boom, one little octave down, and he's not at a safe distance, half health. They gain the Dragon, and this is perfect. This is textbook from EDG. They take the Dragon, they can now transition to pushing in the mid lane, getting vision control over this top side, and start pressuring the Baron.
Get this, EDG really know how to build the pressure. And I want to clarify something that was said earlier on in the cast, that we described EDG as the most LCK-like team in the LPL, at least in my opinion so far this split. And I want to reiterate that I don't think that they're just a slow team. I just think that they are the team that is most interested in playing correctly. And with a composition like this, that means playing slow in the early game, right? Because you need to get a couple of items before your carries come online. But what I want to reiterate is that EDG play correctly, not slowly. If they draft a composition that needs to win in the early game, they will play fast and they will win in the early game. This is a team that is incredibly disciplined. Flandre in a 1v1 now with Cult. Does have a lot of sustain, and he's got some support from Mako as well. Everybody arrives, and Viper's there to grab the kill secure.
That is questionable at best from Cult. And okay, Viper.
I don't know what Garvey was thinking. That's not a 1v1 that you want to take. That's not a place you want to be right now.
I don't even think he had vision. I don't even think he knew it was a woman. I think he just went in to try and steal a red buff that he had absolutely no business stealing. You now have two people down. You're trying to defend. Your defense of this Baron is effectively all on Uniboy or Quay getting a steal. This is so difficult. Flash in, start. They're gonna kill him.
Quay does not get to go for a steal here. Mako is having none of it. Back into the pit they go. EDG, they're just gonna rinse and repeat this. Anytime LGD comes anywhere near, they're going to be obliterated.
This is just a massacre from the side of EDG. LGD honestly just feel a little desperate, going for plays they have no real reason to go for with objectives up on the board. They might feel like they have to go for something to try and get it back into this game, but you need to go for the 40-60s, not the 10-90s. It's definitely a lot more stacked against you when you're trying to all in an Aatrox with a Gore Drinker and a Sterix Gauge in his own kind of side of the map. So overall, this just feels that this was just absolutely beautiful. Viper, he has full knowledge of where Garvey is, so he sets up the feathers, flashes in, and uses the W to call them back. That is honestly so mechanically big brain from Viper. It's so beautiful to watch him.
Yeah, the snake is hiding in the grass of the red buff, and as soon as the prey steps close enough, he strikes. That venomous bite of the feathers going down, and an easy pickup for Viper, who is just flexing at this point. We talked about him being a 3-item AD carry. Well, he's got 3 items and a BF sword to boot. Garvey now has stepped way too far forward once again. We'll sidestep the solar flare, though. There's a little overzealous on the solar flare, to be honest, from Mako, but they're still just going to be able to go for a dive here. They are so far ahead. They don't need to... What tower? They don't see a tower. They're not afraid of this one. Garvey goes into the backline. Somehow the lifesteal kept him alive for a second there, but now Garvey is just going to get chased down from Scout. Scout even decides to commit the flash for this one. Uniboy flashes away, but Flandre is basically invincible, so he's going to be fine. And now onto the inhibs they go. EDG are done with this one, Penguin. They're not stopping anytime soon.
For EDG, the call from them was just like you said, we're now at the point where our composition is stronger, straight up. Doesn't matter about towers, doesn't matter about team compositions. Ours is just better. They slow themselves into a nice and correct game. Great start to this series.
Beautiful stuff. And the speed at which they accelerated with that Baron. Apparently EDG stands for end the damn game, because they closed this one out beautifully. And they show LGD that playing against EDG is no trifling matter.
For LGD, that was the answer they kind of had, and it didn't really work. I like the idea from it. In a vacuum, you should be able to potentially get the advantages, get the early game, and get that poke composition going to the point of which